Hey students, this is a tutorial on how to make a 2x3 Lego piece that has this sloped edge using a procedure called a chamfer. And ultimately, what we will have it look like is this. We'll be doing this in OnShape, and we'll be learning some more advanced techniques that will save you a whole lot of time and energy. So we're going to start in OnShape, and you're going to want to create a new document. And we're going to call this 2x3 Lego with, and then chamfer is CHAMFER. Okay, so we're back here. The very first thing, this is super important. You need to get your units right. So we want to make sure that we are, for this Lego assignment, building in millimeters. So again, go to this 3-line menu, go down to workplace units, and change the default unit length to millimeters, and then click the green checkbox. So that should get you set up well. So we are going to need to start here with our standard sketch on the top plane. So we're going to click on sketch and click on the top plane. Once we have that, we can turn off the top, the front, and the right plane so we don't see it anymore. And if you prefer, I like looking at sketches from above. You can click on the top here and get here. So we're going to need to make a 32 by 16 millimeter center point rectangle. So let's go to the rectangle tool while we're in sketch 1 and go to a center point rectangle. And let's just pull a rectangle out. Doesn't really matter how big it is. So we will use next the dimension tool, as we've been using, to get our exact sizes. So that's this 2-way arrow, diagonal. If you forget or aren't sure, put your mouse over it. It'll tell you what the tool is. Click on that, and we'll click on the longer side, pull that dimension out, and we want that to be 32 millimeters. And then we'll do the same thing on the short side. I can see that my dimension tool is still turned on, so I can just click this, pull it off to the side, and make that 16 millimeters. And now we have beautifully constrained black lines, looking good. So we are done with our initial sketch here. So sketch 1 is done. So we'll click on the green arrow. If you make any mistakes, don't forget that this undo tool right here is your friend. All right, so next is an extrusion. It's always a good idea to look at items from the isometric view when you're extruding. So you can click on this little view cube down here in the menu and choose isometric, and we're back to here. And we can click on extrude. That's this first button right after sketch, and then click on the surface we're doing here. And we want to extrude. Remember, Legos are 9.6 millimeters tall. So let's extrude that up to 9.6 millimeters, and that's looking pretty good here. Let me see if I can move this back into the middle, and that's looking good. You can always go back just to isometric, and that'll work well. All right, so we've got this brick done. So we can finish that extrusion, and you're all ready to go. Okay, so the next step here is going to be sketching on the top, and we're going to learn a new technique here that'll really save some time, but it does involve some new skills here. So pay attention closely. We are going to want to make a new sketch. This will be sketch 2. And we want to do it on the top of our brick. So I'm going to click on the top of the brick, and we've got that there. I'm going to choose to do that by looking down from the top. I really recommend that, is looking at the top here. Now, before we were doing things by hand and having to constrain things a lot, using a huge amount of the dimension tool. We had to draw everything one at a time. So today we're going to learn a different technique. So we're going to need to place 6 circles in here in certain places. So we're actually going to be drawing some guide lines. They're actually called construction lines. So to be able to do so, we're going to turn on the line tool, but we also want to turn on this button right here. It's got a line and kind of a dotted line to it with arrows in between it. And if we turn both of those on at the same time, that allows us to draw lines that aren't going to be part of our end result. They're just there to help us aim. So what we're going to do here is we're going to draw 3 construction lines from the top edge to the bottom edge. Make sure the line tool is on and the construction tool is on. So if I get my cursor on the top edge here and click on it and then pull that straight down to the bottom edge somewhere, make sure it's straight up and down, and double click on that, it'll stay. If you single click, it'll start to try to draw another one. I'll show you what it does. If you click here and then you single click on the bottom for your second line, you'll see it tries to keep it going. You can just end it by clicking it twice in a place. And we'll want a third line, doesn't really matter where, straight up and down, and click there. Then we're going to, I forgot to double click. There we go. Okay. Then we're going to do 2 horizontal or left to right lines. So I'm going to start on this edge, make sure it is nicely horizontal, and I'll double click there and do one more this way. So you should have 3 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. Okay. If you messed up, remember, undo is your best friend. So we're going to turn off construction tool and the line tool, and this is going to help us aim. But first, we need to get these lines where they need to be. So yes, we're going to use the dimension tool. So we're going to make the distance from this line to this edge be 4 millimeters. Okay. We're also going to do the same thing between this line. I'm going to make sure the dimension tool is on. You click once here and then light up the outside edge. Click on that. And then that should also be 4 millimeters. And then we're going to do that one more time here to here, and that's going to be 4. So these are all going to be 4 from the edge, but these inner lines here are going to be 8 millimeters from each other. So this next one, I'm going to click here to the first line, and that's going to be 8 millimeters. And same thing here. This one to this one. Whoop, didn't get it. There. And we're going to make that one 8 as well. And you'll notice now all your construction lines, they're dotted, but if you have them properly constrained, they should appear as black. So looking good at this point. So now we're ready to draw our circles. Okay. So we're going to need a center point circle. And just like we did before, we're going to drag out a center point circle and then use the dimension tool to make it exactly 5 millimeters. Okay. Now, I'm not going to make you do this 6 times because there is a faster way. If you 2-finger click or right click on that shape, you can copy the sketch entity. You go into that menu, 2-finger click or right click. If you have a mouse, right click. If you have a trackpad, 2-finger click, or I think alt click. then you would want to choose copy. Then I can come down here and I can paste an entity, paste sketch entity, paste sketch entity, paste sketch entity, and paste sketch entity. So I've got 6 circles. All right. So what good did the construction lines do for us? Well, what we're going to do here is use another tool called Coincident. Okay. So if you select the center of a circle, and you can see there's a little 1 there now, and a vertical line, and this is a 2, so I have 2 things selected. You can see the little 2 next to my cursor, and the horizontal line. So now I have all 3 lit up. That this and center of the circle is lit up. The vertical line is lit up. The horizontal line is lit up. What we want to say is those all go into exactly the same place. They all come together. And there is a button called Coincident. Okay. It is right next to the dimension tool. If you're on a smaller screen, this might be a pull down menu with all of these here, but you want the one that has a line and a dot, 2 lines meeting together with a dot. So if you select multiple things and then click on this Coincident button, it'll make them all center on each other. I'm going to do that again here. So click the middle, click the vertical and the horizontal line and make them coincident. Center, vertical, horizontal, coincident. Center, vertical, horizontal, coincident. And I'm going to keep doing this until, whoops, something I did wrong there. Let's try that again. Well, I made a mistake, so I'm going to click undo. Then I'm back here, and I'm not sure what I did, but undo is my friend. I'm going to select vertical and horizontal and select coincident, and that worked well. And then lastly, select it, vertical, horizontal, and then click on coincident. So now those construction lines allowed us to know exactly where each one of these circles needed to be. So we're done with sketch 2. Congratulations. You're almost there. So we're going to go back to isometric view so we can take a look at this. And now we need to extrude all 6 of those. Now you do not need to click on each one individually. You can go to extrude, and when it asks what to do, you could click on each one individually, but that's everything that's in sketch 2. So instead of clicking on each one individually, you can just say, hey, I'd like to extrude all of sketch 2. So I'm going to click on sketch 2 over here in the side menu, and boom, it extrudes it way too much. You remember that Lego studs, or the little parts that poke up, are 1.7 millimeters tall. So let's make that depth 1.7, and we will click on check mark, and we're done with that part. So we're almost done here. You have learned how to use construction lines. You've learned how to constrain construction lines, and you've learned how to use the coincident tool. So lastly, we're going to take a diagonal slice off of the edge here. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is using an operation called a chamfer. Now that's a woodworking term to take a 45-degree slice off of a corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to find this tool here. It looks a lot like this fillet tool that has a curve. You want to make sure that you're using the chamfer tool that has the 45-degree angle here. So let's click on that, and then it wants an edge, not a surface, but the edge. So make sure this edge is lit up and click on that. And then it's going to ask you how much distance we want to chamfer. You're going to want to chamfer 8 millimeters. Let's click on that. And that gives you the chamfer you need. And then finish that chamfer operation. And then you are good to go. We've got ourselves a beautiful 2x3 Lego with a chamfer in it. So you learned a lot of new skills in this. Hopefully that worked for you. And all you got to do is share it with me and then mark it as done in Google Classroom. All right. I hope this helps.